The girl lay on the sofa, tossing and turning in sleep. The day before had been odd, and it caused many nightmares to play through Chris's mind. Suddenly her eyes snapped open. As she looked up, she froze, and her eyes widened. He was tall, leaning over the couch, just staring at her. Dark clothes accentuating the paper-white face and hands. He stood there for what seemed like forever. Then slowly he turned and walked down the hall towards her room. A shot of bravery went through her, and she got off the couch and slowly crept toward the hallway to see where the man was going. She saw him continue towards her room. Her door was closed, but that didn't seem to matter to him, because he just walked through it without opening the door. She raced as fast as her little legs would carry her to her mother's room. She jumped in bed and brought the covers over her head and prayed sleep would take her before her mind drove her crazy with what she had just seen. The next day, her mother woke her up and she was groggy from the lack of sleep. Her dreams last night had been so weird. Chris remembered dreaming that she fell asleep on the couch and a creepy man in a dark suit was standing staring at her when she woke up. She felt better as she got out of bed and hopped in the shower. The weekend had just started, and she hoped to get plenty of reading done, which was her favorite thing to do. After eating breakfast, she got in the car with her mother to run errands for the day. Throughout the day, the pale man kept popping into her mind, making her more and more nervous to sleep that night. Even though it had been a dream, she feared it would cause more nightmares if she dwelled on it. When they got home, Chris and her mother put away the numerous groceries and then sat on the couch to watch a movie. As they relaxed on the couch, the girl started to nod off. Her mom nudged her. "The couch must be really comfy for you to fall asleep on it 2 days in a row now," her mom said. "What do you mean?" the girl asked. "Well, you seemed so peaceful sleeping there last night that I left you there. I was pretty surprised to see you laying in my bed this morning. When did you get up?" the girl's mom asked. "I don't remember," the girl said, incredibly freaked out. That hadn't been a dream. That man had really been there, staring at her while she slept. That night, Chris lay awake in her own bed, unable to sleep. What was that? She thought, her head whipping toward her door. She faintly heard movement in the house. Maybe her mother had gotten up for a midnight snack. Very slowly, she slid out of the bed and stood frozen in fear, trying to convince herself to be brave and check out the noise. She breathed in. 1, 2, 3. Out. 1, 2, 3. When the panic seemed to have subsided a little, she stepped towards the door with her hand outstretched. She continued to hear movement in the kitchen. Convincing herself it was her mother getting a drink, she opened the door and walked into the hall. She looked at her mother's door as she passed it, some worry starting to creep back in. But she tamped it down and told herself there was nothing to worry about. As she continued down the hall, she rounded the corner to the kitchen and went white. There was someone in the kitchen, but it sure wasn't her mother. A woman stood by the stove, facing away from her with her head down and her shoulders hunched. Long hair dangled in front of her face. Her dress seemed to be from another era. Chris shakingly took a step back, trying to stay as quiet as possible, so as not to draw attention to herself. But the woman whipped around and looked at her before she could complete the step. Chris took off down the hall back toward her room as fast as she could, hoping the woman wouldn't follow her. She slammed the door, jumped in bed, and threw the covers over her head. Trying desperately to calm her breathing, she heard someone turn the doorknob and walk into the room. She tried so hard to lay still and not move or breathe when she heard her mother saying her name. She threw the covers back and grabbed her mom with all her might, and the only words she managed to get out were, "Can I sleep with you tonight?" Chris slept with her mother for weeks from then on, and though she would occasionally hear things in the kitchen at night, she never went to check it out, and instead figured it must be their cat wandering the house at night. Every time she woke randomly in the middle of the night, she would tentatively open her eyes, but no one was watching her sleep anymore. Life seemed to have moved on, and she started to feel safe again. So much so that she decided to start sleeping in her own bed again. Nothing seemed to happen after that transition either, though. Chris's whole life seemed to sigh in relief. There was no reason to be scared anymore. Weeks later, she played on the floor in her room, listening to music while her mother worked outside in the yard. Chris hated doing yard work. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw someone racing, full tilt, down the hall toward her, and as she looked up, she saw a little girl in a white dress jumping up on her bed. Chris froze mid-scream when the little girl stopped jumping up and down and turned to look at her, hair draped over her face, staring and smiling. Then she started to climb off the bed and walk toward Chris. She stalked slowly toward her, but as Chris's mom opened the front door, the girl disappeared right in front of Chris's eyes.